All right, welcome back for another Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be tackling French adjective placement.
Ooh.
But not the simple stuff. We're going deep.
Okay.
We're talking about those BANGS rule exceptions because we want that pronunciator certificate.
Right.
We want to be able to go into that module and feel really confident with those questions.
Absolutely. That BANGS rule, it can really throw you for a loop if you're not prepared.
Right. It's not just remembering that adjectives usually go after the noun in French. There's more to it.
So much more. It's about understanding how those exceptions really change the way you think about French sentence structure.
Okay, so let's start by breaking down BANGS.
Right.
What does each letter stand for?
Right. So BANGS S, it stands for beauty, age, number, goodness, and size.
Okay.
And those are the types of adjectives that, typically they go before the noun in French.
Right, which is the exception to the general rule.
Exactly. And that's why it can be so tricky.
So let's jump into an example. Let's say we have a pronunciator example like fill in the blank with the correct adjective placement. Chien noir, a black dog.
Okay, I like it. Classic.
Yeah, so I see noir, which means black. That's not a BANGS adjective, so that goes after the noun.
Right. Un chien noir.
But what about that blank?
That's where your BANGS knowledge comes in. You have to think, what kind of BANGS adjective could I use to describe this dog?
I see.
We could say petit for a small black dog, grand for a large black dog.
Oh, so BANGS can really paint a picture.
Exactly. It's not just about filling in the blank. It's about choosing the adjective that creates the most vivid image.
I'm starting to understand why this is certificate level stuff.
It really separates those who just know the rules from those who can really apply them.
Speaking of those trickier situations, I know there are times when even BANGS adjectives can go after the noun.
Ah, yes, those are the curveballs pronunciator loves to throw at you.
So what are those situations? When would a BANGS adjective go after the noun?
Well, one instance is when you have an adverb modifying the BANGS adjective.
Okay, like very.
Exactly. Très. So you might have un chien très petit, a very small dog.
Okay, so the adverb kind of pushes the BANGS adjective back.
It does. It disrupts that usual order.
Are there any other situations where this might happen?
Another interesting one is when the placement itself actually changes the meaning of the adjective.
Oh, wow.
Like take the word ancien, which can mean former or old.
Okay.
If you say mon ancien professeur, my former teacher, ancien goes before the noun.
Right, because it means former in that case.
But if you say mon professeur ancien, my old teacher, it goes after.
So the meaning shifts just by changing the placement.
Exactly. And that subtle difference is something pronunciator loves to test.
That's pretty sneaky.
It is. But once you understand those nuances, it becomes a bit like a puzzle, figuring out the intended meaning.
This is making me realize how much deeper the BANGS rule goes than I initially thought.
It's not just about memorizing a list of words. It's about understanding how those words function in a sentence.
So it's really about understanding the nuance of each word's placement.
Precisely. And that's what separates a good French speaker from a truly great one.
Okay, so we've covered the basics of BANGS and those tricky situations where placement can impact meaning. What else should we be aware of before we jump into some practice questions?
Well, another important thing to remember is that even within BANGS, the order matters when you have multiple BANGS adjectives.
Oh, okay. So like if I'm describing a car as both beautiful and small, doesn't matter which one comes first.
Yes. In that case, you would say une jolie petite voiture, a pretty little car.
So there's a specific BANGS pecking order.
There is. And it can be a bit tricky to remember, but there are some helpful guidelines.
Okay, what are those guidelines?
Well, think about it this way. The more objective the quality, the closer it sits to the noun. So size tends to be pretty fixed. Then comes age, goodness, number, and finally beauty, which is often the most subjective.
Oh, that makes sense. So it's like building a descriptive pyramid with the most objective qualities at the base and the most subjective ones at the top.
Exactly. And understanding that hierarchy will help you navigate those multiple BANGS as adjective situations with confidence.
Okay, I'm feeling much more prepared to tackle those pronunciator challenges now.
Excellent. I think you're ready to put your BANGS knowledge to the test. I have to say, you're picking this up really quickly. You're well on your way to mastering this BANGS rule.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, some of those pronunciator practice questions can be a bit tricky.
Oh, absolutely. It's one thing to know the rules, but it's another thing entirely to apply them in those real-world scenarios.
Right, exactly. So are you ready to put my BANGSic your knowledge to the test?
I am. Hit me with a challenging one.
Okay, bring it on.
All right, how about this? J'ai vu vieille femme au marché. I saw old woman at the market. What would be the correct article and BANGS adjective combination?
Okay, so we're talking about a specific woman. Femme is feminine, so we need the feminine definite article, which is la. And then we have vieux for old, which is a BANGS adjective, so it goes before the noun. So the answer would be la vieille femme.
Perfect. You nailed it. You see how all those pieces fit together?
Yeah, it's starting to click. But I know pronunciator can be sneaky. What are some of the traps they might set in a question like this?
Well, they might give you a few different BANGS adjective options that could technically fit grammatically, but change the meaning. Like, instead of vieille, they might offer belle, beautiful.
Oh, I see. It would still be grammatically correct,
Yeah.
but it would change the whole picture.
Exactly. So you have to think not just about the rule, but about the most appropriate BANGS adjective for the context.
So it's about choosing the adjective that best conveys the intended meaning.
Precisely. And that's where your understanding of nuance becomes so important.
Okay, I'm ready for another challenge.
All right, how about this one? Il a acheté un livre. He bought an apple. We need a BANGS adjective and another adjective that typically goes after the noun.
Okay, two adjectives. So we need to think about the BANGS pecking order here.
Exactly. Which BANGS adjective makes sense in this context? And then where would it go in relation to that other adjective?
So thinking about the type of book, we could say nouveau livre, a new book. Nouveau is a BANGS adjective, right?
It is, and it would go before livre.
Right. And then, what kind of adjective typically goes after the noun? Maybe something like intéressant. Interesting. So un nouveau livre, intéressant.
Perfect. You see how even with that extra adjective, the BANGS adjective still sticks to its position?
Yeah, it's like it has a reserved spot.
It does, and that's a key thing to remember for those pronunciator questions. Even when you have multiple adjectives, that BANGS rule still applies.
Okay, I'm feeling more confident. What else have you got?
All right, let's try this one. Elle a cheveux. She has hair. This one's got multiple BANGS adjectives, and the order really matters here.
Multiple bangs. Okay, so what could describe hair? Let's see, we can use longs for length. That falls under size.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe beau for beautiful, which is beauty.
Excellent. You got the right adjectives. Now, remember that BANGS hierarchy we talked about?
Right, size before beauty. So it would be longs beaux cheveux, long, beautiful hair.
That's it. You're getting it.
This is really making me think about how important those subtle details are.
They are. Pronunciator loves to test those little details.
Okay, feeling good about multiple bangs now. What else can they throw at me?
How about demonstrative adjectives? You remember those sit, say?
Oh yeah, this and that. Those always add a layer of complexity. How do they work with bangs?
Well, think of demonstratives as another level in the hierarchy. They always come first. So it goes demonstrative, BANGS, noun.
So like cette belle maison, this beautiful house.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's like they get priority seating. Anything else tricky about them?
One thing people forget is the agreement. Make sure both the demonstrative and the BANGS adjective agree with the noun. Ces petits chiens, these small dogs, not ces petits chiens.
Oh, right. Double agreement. It's easy to forget about that second one.
It is, but pronunciator will catch you if you're not careful. So how are you feeling about those practice questions now?
I'm actually feeling a lot more confident than I did before we started.
That's great. Remember, the more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become.
Definitely. It's all about putting in the time and understanding those nuances.
Absolutely. And the goal isn't just to pass the exam, it's to really be able to use these rules in your everyday French.
Right, to be able to express myself with more nuance and precision.
Exactly. And speaking of nuance, there's another really fascinating thing about BANGS we should talk about.
Oh, what's that?
It's how changing the position of a BANGS adjective can actually change the meaning of the sentence. Subtle, but really powerful.
Okay, now you've got me intrigued. Tell me more.
It's like you can take the same word and give it a whole new meaning just by moving it around.
Yeah, it's like a secret code almost.
It is. So, for example, imagine you're talking about a friend who used to be a teacher. You could say, mon ancien professeur, my former teacher.
Okay, so ancien before the noun means former.
Right. But you could also say, mon professeur ancien, my old teacher.
Ah, so now ancien means old.
Exactly. Same word, different placement, different meaning.
So in the first example, you're emphasizing that they're no longer a teacher.
Yes. And in the second example, you're highlighting their age or experience.
That's fascinating. It's like the same word can paint two completely different pictures.
It can. And that's the beauty of the BANGS rule. It allows for these subtle nuances that can really change the way you express yourself.
Okay, so ancien is a good example. Are there any other bangs adjectives that work like this?
Absolutely. Another one is pauvre, which can mean poor financially or unfortunate.
Okay, I see where this is going.
So you could say le pauvre homme, the poor man, to express sympathy for someone in a difficult situation.
So pauvre before the noun means unfortunate in that case.
Right. But if you say l'homme pauvre, a poor man, you're talking about their financial status.
Wow, that's a subtle but important difference.
It is, and it's something to keep in mind, especially for the pronunciator exam. They love to test these kinds of nuances.
So it's not just about knowing the rule, it's about understanding the different shades of meaning that those bangs adjectives can convey.
Precisely. It's about using the language with precision and artistry.
Okay, this is really making me appreciate how deep and nuanced French grammar can be.
It is, and the more you explore, the more you'll discover these fascinating little quirks and subtleties.
Now I'm starting to get excited about those pronunciator questions.
That's the spirit. Remember, those tricky situations are what really test your mastery.
I'm ready for the challenge.
That's fantastic to hear. And remember, learning a language is a journey, not a destination. So enjoy the ride.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure exploring the world of bangs with you.
The pleasure was all mine. Thanks for all the insights.
Anytime. And to all our listeners out there, keep practicing, keep learning, and keep exploring the beauty of the French language.
Absolutely. And remember, with a little effort and a lot of passion, you too can master those tricky bangs rule exceptions and unlock a whole new level of fluency in French.